Hey guys, welcome to ActionVFX, the place for newbies, indies, as well as as well as low budgeters. But nonetheless, guys, today we are going to be doing something that we haven't done in a while. So no one tells you how loud it's going to be. The muzzle flash is a tried and true effect, probably one of the most famous visual effects in history. We probably all tried it, probably our first effect. My first one was in Windows Movie Maker. Don't ask me how I did it, I'm a magician. We already have a basic muzzle flash tutorial on this channel. I believe it was the second VFX tutorial I've ever done in my life, so it's a little bit janky, but it still holds up with the basic concept of how to composite a muzzle flash image onto your gun, as well as adding in some smoke elements, although it does need an update. So instead of just remaking my old muzzle flash tutorial and doing what everybody else does, instead I'm going to show you guys 3 tips that you can use to spice up your muzzle flashes. Now, besides replacing those old janky assets with new ones, what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be showing you guys how to properly composite smoke assets from the barrel, how to actually have a shell casing ejecting from the barrel, as well as adding in some battle smoke coming out of the actual battle after the gunshot. We're going to be doing all of this in HitFilm Express, and obviously all of the assets are coming from the best place that you can get action assets from, ActionVFX. Speaking of ActionVFX, who sponsored today's episode, remember when I said that all of the assets that you use determine how good the muzzle flash actually looks? Well, this is what I mean. If you get some random muzzle flash image off of Google, you're going to get exactly what you paid for, which is you paid for nothing. So you're going to be getting a blown out image that looks like the one we used in our original muzzle flash tutorial when always didn't know any better. But unlike then, we now have ActionVFX, who has some of the best action stock footage, probably the best action stock footage on the entire internet. Besides the fact that they have dust, explosions, fire, smoke, and anything else you can need, they also have the best muzzle flash assets I've ever seen. Now they have for automatic guns, they have for handguns, as well as some gun smoke assets that we're all going to be using in this tutorial. Now the reason these are the best is because they all stay in frame, they last a good number of seconds, and they don't cut off at the end. They also have a high frame rate, so you can do slow motion, which is obviously a huge deal because looking for slow motion gun assets are very difficult, and finding ones that have a really high frame rate that you can slow down without it looking choppy is a big deal. Also, in case you guys are wondering, hey, I can't afford all of these things, ActionVFX is currently having a 50% off of all of their assets sale. That means the entire library is 50% off. A few videos ago, I told you guys that if you ever want to get stock footage, you should wait till Black Friday sales. And this is essentially a Black Friday proportional scale because the entire library is 50% off. Now, I'm not just telling you guys this because they sponsored me. I'm also telling you guys because, well, ActionVFX I've used multiple times in all of my tutorials, even ones that weren't sponsored, because generally they do have the best assets out there. Now, that being said, obviously if you want to use your own assets, you can, although what I would recommend is definitely going over to actionvfx.com with the link in the description and checking out some of the sales they have, because you might be able to pick up a pack of God knows how many muzzle flashes for a ridiculous price, as well as some awesome gun smoke and some battle smoke, which I haven't actually seen anybody else do assets like that. Also, the bullet shell casing stock footage that we're going to be using to show the shell emitting from the gun is 100% free on ActionVFX. So even if you're not buying anything, definitely head over there and check out some of the free assets. So grab all of your assets, open up HitFilm Express, and let's go. Fancy seeing you here, but you didn't expect to see me. Well, today guys, we're going to be trying something a little bit different, and I'm going to be here in HitFilm and actually walking you guys through it. I feel like seeing my face in the bottom of your screen could be a soothing effect to your heart. Also, I have a cap on because barbers are still closed. Now let's go. As you can see here, we have Scruffy all the ways, looking as scruffy as ever. And as I've said before, I've already covered all of the muzzle flash as well as the lighting effects in the previous muzzle flash tutorial. And so as you can see, if I zoom in here on the timeline and we move a bit forward, we have the muzzle flash going on. We also have some lighting on our subject as well as a little bit on the background. What we're going to do first is add in some smoke. Now, I did cover this in the previous tutorial, but it was not really that well done. And as I said, if you want to do it really well, the thing about muzzle flash is that it's easy to do, but easy to mess up depending on the assets that you use. So over here in my media panel, you can see I have Gunsmoke angled number 6, which is in 2K from ActionVFX. Now, the one that I'm actually using over here is from the Gunsmoke Volume 2 collection, which as you can see here is on sale right now. And number 6, I think, is the one I used. So angled 6, here it is. And this is a really cool asset because it lasts on the screen quite long. And yeah, you can get it in 4K or 2K. But as I said, you are free to use your own assets. It's all based on your own preference. So What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the actual muzzle flash so that I can see the battle of the gun, but what I want it to happen around the same point where the muzzle flash happens. So at that point, let's drag in the gun smoke asset and drag it in at that point. Now, as you can see, it takes a little bit to start off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off those first few frames, and then I'm going to scoot it up to start where the muzzle flash actually starts, right? Here we have it. Now what I'm going to do is, this is going off a little bit too slow for me, so I'm going to speed it up just a tad. So I'm going to right click the layer, hit up to speed and duration, and I'm going to set mine to around, let's say, 150%. Now let us drag that smoke in a place. I'm also going to rotate it a bit and place it over the barrel. Now the thing about this asset is that it's already angled. Now if you were using an asset that was just front facing, I would suggest turning on the 3D capabilities and then positioning it in 3D space, but because this one is angled, it matches up quite well. So at that point, now what we can see is that it's looking a little bit out of place. So the way to fix this, what I like to do is set the blend mode of the smoke to screen. And now you can see it's looking a little bit too thick for my liking. So the two effects we're going to add is curves as well as a lens blur to blend it in better. So first, let's search for the curves effect and add it to the gun smoke. And then over here, basically you just want to play around. It all depends on how your actual footage looks. So mine, you can see, is really quite moody lit footage. So I'm going to be lowering this a bit so it like sort of is almost a little bit less visible. Then also what I like to do is head over into the alpha setting under the channels and then play around with it there. So this is basically affecting the opacity of the layer. And as you can see, that's looking way better than before. Here it looks like we just placed something on top. Here it looks like it's actually sort of part of the scene. The last effect that I want to do is add in a little bit of a lens blur. Now this is just because my footage is obviously not 100% sharp. This is a 2K asset, so it is going to be a little bit sharper than general. So I'm going to set this is right now, it's way too high, so I'm going to set it to around just 2 to be quite subtle. And the last thing I'm going to do is set the opacity to around 90%. Now, if we go back and we check at what that actually looks like, it looks way better. In fact, I'm actually going to trim back one frame. It starts a bit too abruptly. And move it up a bit. And now if we turn back our muzzle flash layer, we have a little bit of smoke. Side note, again, what I want to do is actually scale that up a bit. And then reposition it over the barrel. Boom. There we have the smoke done. Simple and easy. Now it looks like it took a little bit of time, but once you get into the flow of things, you just copy and paste the curves effect since you're using the same type of assets from the same people shot in the same place, and you really speed up your workflow. Next thing I want to go over, guys, is how to actually add a bullet shell casing coming out of the gun. Now this is a very subtle effect. It happens really quickly, only around over 4 frames, but subconsciously the viewer can detect that it's happening. So in order to prepare for that, what I want to do is turn off my gun smoke layer as well as turn off my muzzle flash layer. I'm leaving the lighting layers on while I'm working just so that I know I'm at the right place, because when there's a burst of light, I know the actual effect is happening. So at the point that I want it to happen, I'm going to drag in the brass shell clip from ActionVFX. These are 100% free over here. These are 100% free. You just add them to your cart and you don't have to put in any payment details, and you can download them for free. So if you haven't already, grab those. Why not? So I have it dragged in here. I'm going to move it in the timeline so it starts over here. I actually wanted to start on a frame where it's put quite well lit, like this. So drag it in like that. Right, now with this asset, it depends on your preference. So what I like to do is check this box over here and turn it into a 3D layer. Now the reason I want to turn it into a 3D layer is because in that way, I can sort of position it in Z space. So I can push it back in Z space. And I can sort of also affect the rotation of the asset, so I can turn it a bit, so that it looks like it's coming out of the gun barrel. So what I would imagine is that it's moving out of this section here. So let's Let's add it over there. Now, the next thing I want to do is add a curves effect, so we can just adjust the color a little bit. Now, this step isn't really super important because, as I said, it is happening over only 3 or 4 frames, but it would help. So, what I'm doing here is just decreasing this a little bit. So that just looks, you know, in tune with the rest of my footage. Then, I add a trusty old lens blur, just to blend it in a little bit. 30 is way too much. I don't know why the standard value is 30. So let's set it to, let's say, until it's about the same as our gun. Around 15 looks good for me. Actually, I didn't give it down to 12. Alright, now we have all those effects done, we can animate this sucker. So, at the starting point, what I want you to do is turn on keyframing for the brass shell's position. Then head forward 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. And at that point, what I want you to do is drag it off screen over here. Now, the tricky part, or actually not the tricky part, the key with doing this is that now what's happening is that it's just boom, shooting off to the side. But in real life, things have a trajectory and a curved path, especially when it comes to a bullet shell casing. So in order to affect that, all we have to do is really just at the end, grab this handle and turn it up. So now it has a sort of curved path. And obviously the last step, what you want to do, since this is moving at quite a high velocity, turn on motion blur over here. Now, if we check out a preview of what that looks, you can see that it happens really quickly, but you can sort of detect that it's over there, you know? If I turn on the gun smoke as well as the muzzle flash, you can see, poof, there we go. It happens. That was a live sound effect just for you. Alright, last but not least, we're going to be adding in some battle smoke. Now, obviously, these battle smoke clips I do have from Gunsmoke Volume 2 from ActionVFX. These clips are some of the clips that I found really interesting, because normally in order to do battle smoke, you'd need to have a particle simulator. Now, Headfilm Express doesn't really have access to a particle simulator unless you buy the add-on pack, but in its core free setup, it doesn't have a particle simulator. So having clips like this, which is like battle smoke, that has sort of like a circle at the bottom that you can see where the battle is coming up, is really valuable. So what I want to do here is to add the battle smoke to the actual battle. All I'm going to do is first I want it to stick to the battle. Now, if you do add this into your shot, don't move your gun around too much, because it does look a bit wonky when the smoke starts following the battle, as smoke is supposed to just, you know, go into the air and do its own thing. So here I'm not moving the gun I'm not moving the gun too much, although there is a little bit of movement. And so to capture that, we're going to quickly track this shot. So let's create a new point layer, and I'm going to call that tracking data. Then with our clip selected, let's head to the start, head over to controls and click on the plus icon next to tracker. Let's then move the boxes over a nice spot. I have a nice glowy spot over here that provides some sort of contrast for the battle, so I'm using this. The boxes look fine, and then without let's hit track forward. Since it's a high contrast spot and I'm not moving the gun around too much, it tracks perfectly well. In the layer, let's select tracking data, hit apply, and boom, we have a track done just like that. So over here, we now have our point layer attached to our gun barrel. So all it is now is about compositing in that battle smoke. So let's drag in the battle smoke asset. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoot it over in the timeline until I started seeing it happen. So around here looks good for me. Then we can move it over our barrel. Now, if you look at this, the barrel in the actual asset is a bit smaller than my barrel. So the way I like to do this is a little bit of a cheat. Unlink the scale property and then start stretching it out a little bit. Now you can see it fits the barrel quite well. So then what we're going to do is, obviously, let's just trim that portion at the start off and trim it to last the amount that we want. And let's also trim our point layer to last that long. And then finally, let's just parent that battle smoke to our tracking data. And now we can see that it moves along with our clip and it looks quite nice. But what I'm not liking is that it's not blended 100%. So what I'm going to do, obviously, is do our same standard effects. Let's add the curves effect over here. Let's just decrease that a bit. Let's find a nice spot. Let's head over into the alpha settings. Let's add our trusty old lens blur effect. As you can see, In most of these effects, we're adding just a couple of effects, just the curves and the lens blur, just to blend it in a little bit, but most of the work is actually done by the effects. Here I'm just setting it low to around 2. Since this clip is moving, let's turn on the motion blur for the clip, as well as finally I'm going to set the opacity down to around 90%. But with that said, add up all of those steps and you should end up with something that looks a little bit like this. And there you have it, guys, 3 ways in order to spice up your muzzle flashes to make them a little bit better than basic. Again, if you guys are interested, hit the link down below. Give my boys at ActionVFX a look-see, because they do have some really good sales going on right now for the next week, I believe. So definitely check that out. Let me know what you guys thought of the tutorial down below. If you have any suggestions for new effects you want to see on the show, definitely leave them in the comment section. That's what it's there for. Follow me on Twitter for some behind-the-scenes action and stuff I'm always sharing there. You know, anything that comes out of this head is bound to be word vomit. Sorry for that image. Leave a like down below, subscribe. We just hit 10k and we are now moving on to the next goal, wherever that may take us. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.